let's start off by talking about the amazing documentary called My Octopus Teacher. It's on Netflix. Yes. Caleb and Karina have now watched it twice, almost 3 times.
Almost 3 times.
So you guys will be the authorities on this because I've only seen it once, Ryan, and I only watched it once. I was supposed to watch it again, but I just didn't. That's fine. And then you watched Arrival recently. I've also watched.
I did watch it 3 times.
Yeah, Karina, to clarify, she watched
almost
it
4 times.
Almost 4.
Yeah.
If that's, people should watch this. It's a wonderful documentary. It's just beautiful. So we'll talk about what we loved about it. There's going to be heavy spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, definitely
don't
pause.
watch this podcast.
Yeah, come back later. But I want to talk about kind of the correlations between that, the feelings that we had while watching that documentary. And then I recently watched Arrival. Did both of you watch Arrival recently?
Yeah, we just both watched it as well.
Ryan has watched it, but not recently.
Many times.
Many times in the past. Yeah.
And then it's so good. It's a good one.
Amazing movie.
And then I think I'm the only one of this group that watched The Shape of Water, which is a great kind of in between alien, still aquatic kind of movie. So we're going to kind of talk about all of those a little bit.
You were the only one that watched Shape of Water?
Well, I've seen it just in the past.
You have?
Yeah, in the past I watched it. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
I haven't seen it.
I was with you when we watched it 2 days ago.
But not watching.
Not conscious.
Do you not remember that? I was literally next to you.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry, just deleted you out of that memory.
Yeah, right? What the heck?
Oh my God, I feel so bad. Sometimes you nap while I watch stuff, so I don't register that you're there.
No, I watched the whole thing with you.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
So when I saw that, we don't like to watch all of previews. If we start to kind of feel like we want to watch the movie, we'll just pause it and then just go ahead and watch it so it doesn't kind of ruin everything.
Yeah.
And within the first few moments of that trailer, I was like, I have to watch this. This is the most amazing thing. I am very interested in the connection that people have to animals. Mm-hmm. And I have always been very fascinated by ocean animals, especially dolphins, and whales. People say that they have intelligence and curiosity and things that we have, that we, pride ourselves as humans, like we're so intelligent and all this stuff. And when you look at the ocean, you go, that's the world that we can't live in because we have to breathe. Mm. And so when you watch this thing, you go, okay, I started to kind of feel like this guy became an ocean creature because you see so much of him underwater. Yeah. And obviously you have to learn how to hold your breath and stuff, but this guy specifically swam without a wetsuit in frigid water because he wanted to feel like he was part of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And you watch him go through these crazy crashing waves. It's like this struggle that he has to get through. And then he gets into this Dr. Seuss looking forest of magical creatures. And it blew my mind the very first time that you see the octopus when she's in her armor shell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I freaked out because I was like, I didn't know at that time that was just what octopus do to protect themselves.
Yeah.
And I was thinking she wanted to get his attention. And so she made herself into this kind of weird shape that would catch his attention.
That's what I thought too.
Really?
Because he says in the beginning, he's like this, he came in at the end of this whole drama. So I imagined that it was the octopus showing off to him or whatever, but it's not. But that part was so interesting to me too, because he said that he went home and looked that up a bunch of times and couldn't find anything on it. And there's no documented papers or anything on the octopus holding the shells like that to protect themselves.
Really?
Yeah. And I watched it the second time I saw that too, where he tried to find any other time that somebody had recorded an octopus doing that, and there's none. That's the only documentation that exists right now is his documentary.
Wow.
So that's
I did
pretty
not
cool.
know that.
Yeah.
That's some
crazy.
of the most amazing.
So nobody had ever seen.
At least it's not in any literature. He read for weeks trying to find if anybody had seen something similar, and he couldn't find anything. So he was like, I got to go back. And that's what kind of sparked his interest in the beginning.
Wow.
But yeah, I think at least from what I heard, that's the only recorded time that they've seen it.
And then I'm sitting there and I go, okay, maybe she knew that. Maybe she's like, this is something I do. This is just my brain going, maybe she was like, ooh, wait, hold on. That big creature that just swam by, I'm going to catch his attention. Because the thing is, as you watch this, you start to see that she has this personality. And 5 minutes in, I remember telling Ryan, I'm like, this is a love story. Yeah. He's going to fall in love. I know what this is, even though I didn't watch the whole trailer, so I didn't really know. But I just had this sense, I'm like, if I were that guy, it would be a dream come true. And I'm not a huge aquatic person. Like I don't really know much about the ocean, but just the idea of going into this world that you don't belong in because you literally can't breathe there. And then this thing is like seeking you out.
Yeah.
And then does this display to get your attention. And then what did he spend like a year capturing footage of her?
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah,
I
a
think
year.
About a year.
Because that's how long their lifespan is.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what. Yeah.
And I did not know that.
Yeah.
And that like broke my heart to realize
Too.
he was also going to watch her.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I said that at the beginning. There's definitely spoilers.
Lots of spoilers.
Yeah. But Charlotte's Web was the other story that I kind of thought this reminded me of, especially at the end of it. When they like see the little baby and they're like, oh, maybe this is her.
Yeah.
So it has all these elements that I've seen before, but it just blew my mind because we've never seen something in the wild like this, like a movie where they hire an octopus actor, they can capture it that way, or an animation or whatever. That's one thing. But for this to truly be a guy who spends more of his life underwater with this creature than even on land with his family, and he starts to just become obsessed with her and just wanting to be there, and he's so drawn to it. And then to realize like when she gets attacked by the shark and that was like such a sad, I was just like, we may have to turn this off.
Yeah.
Because watching her in this moment of nature, like that was straight up nature happening,
Yeah.
and him deciding not to step in.
Yeah.
What would you do in that situation if you were actually like in love with this creature? You have this relationship and then you see it attacked by its predator in the sea. What would you do?
You would totally try. I would totally try to save it.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm not like coming from a scientific background of like, oh, this is just Mother Nature playing out. I have to study this and see what happens. And like, as if I weren't here, it's like if I built a relationship like that with any kind of animal, I would just naturally feel inclined to save it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like my humanity kicking in, but I would.
You and your human
Yeah.
feelings.
Yep.
My human
I would
feelings.
have done the same thing for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Saved it.
I was kind of yelling at the
Yeah.
screen at
We were
this
both
guy.
like, why
too.
Yeah, I
wouldn't
was
you
just
step
like-
in?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What? He's just floating there?
Right.
Yeah.
And
it was just
and
incredible.
filming, like knowing like I'm
Perspective.
capturing this footage that could potentially be the death of this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's what I think. So I kind of attribute this octopus and kind of how, you start to learn about the octopus just as a species.
Yeah.
And how they can fit through things that are tiny and how they regrow
Yeah.
arms. I don't know
Yeah.
why I never knew that.
Yeah.
But and then he like left food for her when she was injured in her little like den, and just things about like this octopus as a conscious being. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's my phone.
But even the fact that octopus can like camouflage the way they can, and that we
And,
don't
like,
we
shape.
Yeah.
don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's nobody really knows.
Well, he
how-
said it's as a way to get away from predators.
Well, okay, we know why, but we don't know how.
Yes.
We don't know
Yeah.
exactly like what the mechanism is, how
Right.
they can,
Yeah.
how do they know what's underneath them? Like,
Yeah, like
How
how,
does
do
their-
they recognize the coral so well that they can like match the texture of it and everything, and it's below them that they're matching it with? It's so strange. It's like
Yeah.
I mean, color, texture, everything. So how could you? They don't have eyes underneath them.
yeah.
Yeah.
The part that they were talking about, like part of their cognition, like part of their brain is spread
all
across
in
their
their
whole
tentacles.
like tentacles and body. So it's like they're thinking with their arms,
Yeah.
which is so strange to think about.
and the part where she started walking,
Yeah, that
I was like, what am I watching?
I love
Yeah.
that. It's like that part was where I was like feeling like I'm understanding like
Yes.
her personality. Like she's like
Yeah.
silly and like doing this thing that's just like she doesn't have to walk like that, but
Right.
she's just doing it.
Yeah.
So weird and cool to
Yeah.
see.
And the
She's
part
just
where
enjoying life.
Yeah.
well, it's weird because you almost feel like she got used. It's like watching the Kardashians where I'm like, how do they do their life without the camera interfering with how they speak to each other? And eventually when that thing's around you as often as it is, you kind of tune it out. So for her, it was this testament to her being so okay with him, like him being so respectful of her that she was able to do that stuff while he's swimming right next to her. And then the part where his lens dropped and she ran away, that just shows you this very delicate balance between, just because she like said hi to him or whatever and they like embraced doesn't mean that that's there forever, like something scared her and she's like, oh, I don't trust you anymore. And that's why Tiger King, you watch so many things where you're like, what draws these people to these wild animals? It's that feeling. You feel unlike anything when an animal that isn't supposed to love you does.
Yeah.
You're just like, am I special? Like, what happened there? Like, so you watched this like a week or so ago, and every single time that we're like in the same room, I'm like, the part of the thing, and we're like, no, save it for the podcast. So I have like so many thoughts that I want to like go through on this. But have you guys ever had an experience with an animal where you feel like you have a special connection with them, that it's not just like, oh, I have a friendly cat or a friendly dog and they're like this for everyone? Have you ever felt like I had a horse and I sensed that she would respond to me in a way that she wouldn't respond to other people? You could see it like in her eyes. I had birds that I had a special call and they would come fly to me. Mm-hmm. So I've had those before, and that's why I think I was so drawn to this. Have you guys ever experienced anything like that?
I mean, I feel like that way with my cat, but it is like, I don't know, it's different because like my cat will be out and about when people are over. And even with Karina, like your relationship with Luna, my cat, his name is Luna, is like different than my relationship with Luna. And when I come home, she like knows that it's me coming home and like runs to the door and meows a bunch the way she does every time I come home. And I'm like, that, I feel like I do have that connection with her, but it's also, I feel like I never know, is it actually that I have that connection, or is it just like my mind like creating that because she just wants food and attention or whatever? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like you've also had pets your whole life, so maybe it's like an intuitive feeling that you just always feel connected to animals.
Yeah.
Because for me, I've never really had pets before until I was in college. Kind of when I was in college, because I had a roommate who had a dog, and I never had a pet, so I never like lived with a dog. And I had a dog that I would like walk sometimes, but I didn't like get anything out of it because obviously it was like my roommate's dog, and it was always like with my roommate. But then when I got Coda, like everything
That's
kind of like
cat.
started making
Coda. What is a Coda?
Coda
That's our other
is
cat.
a white, fluffy Turkish Angora cat, I think he is.
Fancy.
Yeah, he's so fluffy.
Sounds expensive.
It was free, actually. Yeah.
Priceless.
But that's my first pet. And I'm like, okay, what's this big deal? Like when people say like, oh my gosh, I'm so sad, like my pet died, like I just like never really understood it, especially like older ladies who have like necklaces of their like dog's ashes. I'm just like, why?
Yep.
And then, I mean, not that I would do that in the future now, but like I am like learning, oh, this is what having a pet is like. It's like it needs you. It's like following you all day, and it's like always like by your side, and like it kind of like always is like calling for you if you're gone, or like scratching on the door if you're in like a room and you close the door, and just like, what the heck, like why is it doing that? And I'm like, okay, maybe it wants food, so I give it food, but like it doesn't want food. It's just following me because. But then I think like Luna, because she's been with you longer, she's always more attached to you, and it's like being more, I guess, affectionate, I want to say, towards you. And Coda's like more attentive to me. Like, he's always looking for me.
Coda, when Karina leaves, he just goes and sits by the door and like screams. Like he meows so loud.
mean.
But yeah, he definitely knows that you're gone and like wants you back. It's so weird.
Yeah.
That's so
It's so
funny.
precious.
Yeah.
So imagine that feeling that you have, because this comes from developing a relationship, because you're the caretaker and things like that. And perfect example with your roommate's dog, where it's like, yes, it's an animal in my life, but it's not mine. I don't really have that. Imagine, this is like my dream, to like go to an island somewhere and there's a wild horse, and it's like, oh, you need to get around the island? Well, like, I'm going to test you so you can ride me and I'll buck you off. But like, we'll go through some tests. You guys ever heard of, I think it's called not the Black Stallion. There's a movie about this boy who gets shipwrecked with this beautiful horse on an island, and the horse like saves him from a snake getting him. And then they just kind of have these weird like cat and mouse situations on the island. And then eventually he like befriends the horse and
Spirit.
Oh, no, it's
Disney
not.
Spirit.
It's called,
Is that not it?
It is the Black Stallion. I was thinking of Black Beauty. Sorry.
Yeah.
So the Black Stallion, and if you watch this movie now, so we're all like into movies and stuff, I could not imagine making this movie. like the people who actually filmed it. Like this, I think it was legit on an island with a real horse and a real kid just running around in his underwear, like feeding it seaweed. It's just crazy. But I've always been drawn to this idea that this creature that's powerful and doesn't need you could just be like, no, and float away or run away or whatever. And this octopus could have easily just been like, no, I don't want you to find me, and moved away or camouflaged so much that he couldn't have found her.
Yeah.
But she was curious enough. And then you start to see, and I think the moment where it changed from like, oh, it's an accidental hanging out with this octopus, like it didn't really see him. And so, you know, no, the part where you're like, she wants him to be there is when she starts to feel him. And then like the part where they're like, he's like holding her because she like goes on his heart. Like you have to imagine she's probably hearing his heartbeat or feeling it with her brain hands.
Yeah.
And then the part where he has to leave and goes back up and she attaches.
Yeah.
You just go like, she had to have trusted him, you know, like there had to be some barrier in her mind that she had to cross over in order to be like, okay, I'm not taking this as a threat anymore.
Yeah, like I can fully trust this human who's in my world now. It's so freaking crazy.
Yeah, well, trust is such a delicate thing. And for an animal to be capable of that is incredible.
Yeah. And then he lost it by accidentally scaring her with that thing dropping and then couldn't find her for forever. And then eventually was like, oh, I found her. So that to me is just like, I mean, I have dreams of being underwater, and I've explained this to people before where it's like, in my dream, if I can just breathe very slowly in and out, then I can breathe underwater. And I am obsessed with that idea. Sometimes I'll wake up and be like, I know the secret now. Like, I'm just going to go jump in the pool and try to figure that out.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that? Is it liquid oxygen that you can actually fill your lungs completely, and you can go like submerge yourself in it?
No.
Did I dream
Really?
that? Did I make that up?
Maybe you did. We've been eating organ meat capsules, and it's been giving us crazy dreams. So
That's true.
Gosh.
But no, I'll look it up. Go amongst your business. But I do think it's interesting, the whole idea of any of these interactions with animals. We're always like, okay, well, we want to kind of speak on their behalf.
Yes.
And we want to kind of make sense of what it is that they're doing. But it's weird because, maybe they have some sort of language, but they don't have the kind of language that we have.
Yeah.
So even if they have some sort of thought or some sort of internal dialogue, it's not necessarily like what we have in our heads. So we have to articulate it for them.
Yeah.
But how strange would it be at some point if we could get some sort of technology that would allow some sort of language between human and animal?
Well, that's why Arrival is my favorite movie.
I was just thinking
ever.
of Arrival. I'm like, Arrival.
So before we move on to Arrival, because that's another huge section.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, I watched a video once of a girl going to see a horse that she used to own. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She goes to see the horse that she used to own. And the horse like comes up to her, and she like goes to hug the horse, and she has a treat in her hand, like behind her back. And the horse simply just goes and gets the treat, and she starts crying. She's like, he hugged me. And all the comments were like, you had a treat in your hand.
I thought you said tree.
Tree.
I'm like, a tree.
She's like a lumberjack. But
God.
that's the kind of stuff that I laugh about, because I'm like, if I were that girl, I would absolutely cry and be like, the horse hugged me, because we want to interpret those interactions as special.
Yeah, like we have this like desire to put it into our own words, what they're feeling or whatever, like you're saying, Ryan, like that we just have to like, they can't speak, so we put into words when Coda sits by the door and meows for Karina. I'm like, he misses her, but I'm like, what does missing somebody feel like to a cat?
Right.
The same thing with the octopus documentary. It was like, he was like, in some weird octopus way, she now like trusts him and likes hanging out with him. And I'm like, that's so weird to think about, because it is probably way different. Like the way that their brain works can't be anything similar to how a human's is with our language and everything that we've built up. So it's just interesting to think about, like, how do they experience their emotions and thoughts, or if they even have thoughts, like how do they think? That would be so cool.
Two things. One, that's not a thing. You can't breathe liquid oxygen.
Okay, so do not try this at
Is it
home.
dangerous?
Not a real thing. I don't know where I got it from. I think it's from a movie, because other people are asking the same thing.
Okay.
I'm not alone. I got this from somewhere. It's kind of one of those things where, like, I'm getting off topic now, but like when you are told that your blood is blue until it hits oxygen. Were you guys ever told that?
Yeah, I heard that for a long time.
Oh, but your veins are purple.
But you know that's
like
not true.
blue.
Like your blood's not actually blue.
No.
Yeah. Did you guys ever hear that?
I never even heard that, so that's kind of
Sorry, I didn't know if it was one of those things that's like, you just hear
people just say it
at a young age.
Well, it's interesting how ideas pass around like that, and that multiple people are asking the same question online. Like, where did everyone get that same thought?
It must have been in a movie.
It's got to be something like that,
or something that was going around. But even weirder, just to keep on the tangent. The whole, those like Miss Mary Mac.
I was literally going to say that. Why does this happen all the time?
Like, why are those things all over the country? Like, where do you learn that?
When I was in middle school, I learned these things, and I am hearing kids that are when I was that age doing those things, kids now are doing those things, and nobody's teaching them.
Right. Like my little niece and nephew are singing the same damn songs.
Like no adult is saying like, this is a thing I used to do and pass it down. They just know it. It's like bus ride games, things that you do at recess, just these little.
Yeah.
Where does that start? Is it like in the weird global consciousness? It's like when you hit this age, Miss Mary Mac is going to come through.
Right?
Yeah. It's so strange.
It's
and it's like even like across countries though, because I thought that too, and then I was reading something on Reddit about like people from other countries saying that they played the same exact game as like Americans were playing when they were kids. And I'm like, how did they learn it? Like across the globe, people
that doesn't make any sense.
That's something more. Yeah. There's something bigger. Yeah, for
how
sure.
weird is that?
That's like the aliens abducting cows.
Yes,
people just like know it, but if you ask
like you
them,
don't even know where you know it from.
Yeah,
like. You know that like sometimes aliens abduct cows, or like
there's like
obviously
literally look up alien abduction on Amazon. There's little patches that have an alien abducting a cow. So it's
but where did that come from? Where did that idea?
I mean, I know where it came from. The 60s and 70s where cows were literally being
actually abducted
mutilated
by aliens.
Well, they were being mutilated, and so people didn't know. They thought like rangers or some people were out to steal their cattle, and they could not figure out what was taking their specific flesh, and there was no blood left over. Like, look into cattle mutilation, you'll be like, aliens were absolutely doing something in the 60s and 70s, and people got so scared that they had to literally be like, there aren't aliens, this is just a weird thing, it's a disease. They had to make it up because so many people are panicking. They had to put out news articles that were like, everyone calm down.
Well, there's never really been any sort of like definitive, this is what was happening with the cattle mutilation stuff.
No, there isn't. It's all a mystery, and they still don't know what. They said the cuts were so precise, and it was using tools or something that we don't have. Like, we couldn't do it if we tried, and there was not a drop of blood near the cows that this would happen to, where the farmer would like tag its ear and like minutes later would come back to it and it would be drained of blood. Specific tissues, like soft tissues like the tongue and stuff, would be missing. Specific cuts were in it, and nobody could figure it out. And then sometimes they had like weird like indents in the ground around it and a tripod shape. Just so many weird things.
This is real?
This is real. Look up cattle mutilation on Wikipedia and you'll get stuck on a trail and you'll go, oh wait, something crazy was happening in the 60s and 70s.
Dang.
And so that brings us to Arrival. My absolute favorite movie, just in general. I mean, it's about aliens, yes, but the idea that these things, and like the soundtrack in it is so good because it's so minimal. Like the part where they are flying in the helicopter and then they like pan up and you see the big egg thing.
Yeah.
It is the most, I always get chills when I think about it. It's the most realistic as far as aliens go. It's not like a saucer that comes out of the sky and starts shooting lasers and like aliens are scary. It's this very like respected thing.
Literally the most realistic, since now we have like the Captain Fraser Tic Tac videos and all that stuff. It's kind of weird.
I know, it's weird how similar it is to everything that's been coming out recently with UFOs and the government and everything like that. It's like so similar. It's very strange.
But I love that the idea of the movie was not about aliens. It was about humans and the whole idea of language. Like her figuring out, can you imagine? Oh, that's like a dream of mine. Yeah. That the fate of the world rests on your shoulders to be able to figure out how to speak to these things. And that the part where she takes off her outfit because she's like, they have to see me. And they're like, no. And she's risking herself, which by the way, I did not understand why they had the canary in the cage. Do you guys know what that is?
It's canary in the coal mine.
Right. We've looked it up. I'm just curious if you guys have ever heard. No. Do you know what that's for?
No.
I assumed it was the canary in a coal mine thing.
Yeah.
So I thought it was
canary in the coal mine.
I thought it was symbolic. I thought they were doing something symbolic about like, we are friendly, but it's not. Coal miners used to bring canaries into the coal mine with them. And if the canary died, then they knew that there was toxic gases being released because it was more sensitive than they were, and so they knew to get out. So that's why they bring this canary in, and she walks past it, which means she would be the first thing to get the toxic stuff.
Oh,
so
I
it's
didn't
showing.
realize that.
I didn't either, and so we watched it again. And we're like, what is this? Like, I feel like I'm missing some symbolic thing, and it's kind of like you don't know if it's toxic, and then you obviously know at the end, like she was exposed to something in there, which is what the whole story is, but. The just idea that these things come out and then like the language, whoever invented that thing, the like ink kind of thing, because they remind me of octopus, like how they do that whole thing. I'm just like,
they looked like octopus. They were like hectapods.
Yes.
Yeah, literally like very similar.
It's amazing how. Yes.
Did you know that the movie employs one of the popular linguistic theories called Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which is a theory that suggests that people's thoughts are determined by the language they speak?
Yes.
There are two versions of this theory. The strong version of the linguistic determinism is less accepted by the linguist, and it states that all human thoughts are determined by the language they speak, and that the weak version is called linguistic relativism, implies that language shapes people's thoughts.
She says that in the movie at some point. She's like, you can rewire your brain, therefore rewire your perception if you, and she's a woman who, she knows tons of languages. So I'm sure her ability to see the world, that's almost like why they chose her and why they said use your gift, because she was the one who was equipped to be able to do this thing, which is like, we need to come at it from all angles. But the idea of like time hopping and that like,
well, I heard also, that's what I was trying to look up, is that the guy that was like the consultant on that film for the language stuff is a legit guy that has like a theory of, he's been working on like a theory of everything or something.
Ooh.
Oh, really?
Theory of everything.
Yeah, it's like a theory that I don't know for sure if he was working on a theory of everything, but a theory that basically remedies the issues between like the macro and micro physical universe, the quantum level and the general relativity.
Because there's other
I'm
stuff.
out of my depths on this. I gotta tell you, I'm just saying words now.
Yeah, like Karina, remember I was telling you about like quantum mechanics and all like the weirdness of like the things that happen at a really tiny scale, and it's like it doesn't seem to match up with the reality that we know and the math that we use to understand the world. So a theory of everything is trying to come up with a theory that makes everything make sense together.
But it also has to include like consciousness and like there's a couple of different things it has to include in order to technically be like a theory
I feel like
of everything.
Magic is a part of that.
You got to be there's like probably a handful of people in the world that are capable of even working on such a thing. It's not like a huge number of people that exist that are working on these kinds of things.
Right. Yeah.
It's top like.
But
you have to have a general knowledge of a lot of things and be extremely smart.
Yeah.
Like theoretical physicists, usually, people like that.
And that's, I think the guy on, so she's coming from a language background, he's coming from the science. Was he a theoretical physicist?
Something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I think he was.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're on the airplane and they're kind of talking and first of all, before she even gets the job, I love, oh my God, chills again, the part where he's the, army guy is leaving the office when she's basically like, no, I can't go and do this, like in the very beginning.
Because she knows what it takes to do that kind of job.
Well, she was basically saying, I can't do it. Like, this is an audio file. Like, how am I, like, I have to be able to see them. I have to, all this stuff. And so she's basically like, I can't do what you're asking. And he's leaving. And then she goes, before you go to the other guy, ask him what I think it was the Sanskrit
for
war. And so when he comes to the house, and this is something that like the helicopter's going, so you can't really hear. But he says it's an argument. That's what the other guy said. And then she said it's a desire for more cows. And so that starts off the basis of her and the way that she views the world. And that's where I look at it and I go, there are people who know a lot. Like obviously this other guy was qualified enough for the general to come and try to get him to come work on this top secret thing. So you look and you're like, among the field of professionals, there are then those specific people who stand out as people who are able to view the world in a more broad way that says, I don't want to make the mistake, especially when it comes to language, of misinterpreting. And I love that she used the fake example of kangaroo.
Yeah.
And
she's like, I just had to say that.
Yeah, exactly. It proves my point.
Yeah.
So she's the type of person that you go, I want to be like that. Obviously the plot is, this magical, fantastical thing, like, oh, speaking to aliens, how much fun. But you want to be somebody that, and I think to fit her more into like an archetype, I feel like she may be, Ryan, you probably have to help me on this because this is some like Jordan Peterson stuff. Mary is what archetype? Is it the mother?
Yeah.
So the woman who knows the suffering that she is going to bear, but she does it anyway and she does it willingly. That's what this movie is about. And so we've always seen, and we've kind of talked about movies that have women that kind of take on the masculine role as if that is better, as if like Captain Marvel, if I can be the superhero that's powerful and strong and all these things that the male characters usually have done, then that's better. And I say, but we're missing out on this genre, which is, what is the female power, the one that's not strength and like all of those things, not like physical strength and things like that? What is it that could be the archetype of not just the hero, but what is that whole thing? And I feel like she does it in a way that's very, they told that story so well, because she's smart, but she's not boastful, and she's confident in herself, but she's not, you know, like, it's just, it's really good how they put it together. But just knowing that the motherhood aspect comes in waves the whole time, where you're like, how does this child fit in? Why does she keep seeing these flashes? And this idea that she knows that her child is going to bring her so much joy and then so much suffering. And she knows that that's what's going to happen. And she does it willingly.
Yeah.
And then the fact that her and the guy that they go through this whole experience with, so obviously they bond, the fact that they are no longer together, but she like doesn't know it until the story progresses. So it's just crazy how they pull in time.
Yeah.
And how it's not linear, and how it's almost this like circle.
Yeah. I love that.
It's hard to fathom.
I know. Can you imagine though if that book was real? The book that she writes in the movie, where it's
I wish.
for you, like learning this language. And I love the idea of that language too, that it's this symbol that has it was almost like emotions in it. Like, how did they speak? It was more like concepts versus sentences.
Yeah, it was like
something
ideas.
Okay.
It's a language of like symbols that symbolized ideas.
And the fact that it was like you could read it forward and backward it meant the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just so interesting. And
That's
like,
why she named her daughter Hannah.
yeah, I thought that was so cool. But I don't know. I just love that idea of like time not being linear, because we already know that time is just like a relative thing, that we experience time because of where we are at. And if you were off of the planet somewhere else, you'd be experiencing time different.
Yeah.
So it's such an interesting concept. And that movie did such a good job of like tying it all together.
Yeah.
And like, I loved the like flashback scenes. It was so cool.
And how you don't know quite, and she also doesn't know, like the part where her daughter's like, what's that thing called? Where it's like, nobody really wins, but both sides come out with something, or something. And she's kind of like, I don't know. And then you see her daughter walk away and you're kind of like, oh, it's not working. And then in the moment that she has to know zero-sum game in the now, suddenly she says it when she's walking back up the stairs. Yeah. That kind of stuff is just, it's such a well done movie. And it's very rare to get a movie where you go, everything about it is perfect, that there isn't this part that you're like, I just wish they didn't have that, or that was a little dumb. There's none of that in the entire thing. You're just like, this is perfect. Yeah. I wonder if the octopus, how they sense time, because they're underwater. So they obviously know the moon and the sun, like they can feel the tides and things.
And their lifespan is so short. So like, how do they experience that time? Does it feel like an entire lifetime, or does it feel like a year? Because we like see them and it's like, it's gone in a year. And
all of those, millions of babies? How many?
Yeah, millions.
Can you imagine if she, because of her life and her interaction with this human for most of her life, so you're right, a year that's her time span, and he spent so much time with her, I wonder if they will have a sense for like being curious about people, because they are a part of her. So I wonder if they saw a person, if they would be a little more apt to be like, oh wait, hi, instead of being like reset back to being a wild octopus. I wonder if that could, if he continued to go out and meet her little babies and they grew up, and then he kept that cycle going every year in like 20 years, if the octopus just crawled out of land and was like, hey, hey daddy.
Yeah. Well, that was another crazy part where the octopus just crawls out of the
when
land.
she's escaping.
Yeah.
So crazy. It's so strange to see that. Yeah.
So Shape of Water. What did you feel when you watched that movie? Because to me, I think it's one of those that you either love it or you hate it. I don't think it's really for everyone.
Yeah. I liked it a lot. They definitely make you, it's like I felt very like cold. Like it's like very like the colors in general, like very like green, like dark colors. And it was just, like you said, everything being wet. It just seemed like dirty and gross and like dark. but then it's like a love story.
Yeah.
With this so strange couple that like just, I don't know. I loved the movie, honestly, but it was just a very, very strange movie.
I think it's weird because it crosses the barrier where we're so used to seeing humans interacting with each other. And obviously there's like issues with, some humans don't like some humans being together and things like that. But almost every human can kind of agree that when you cross over into another species, it's kind of like, wait.
Yeah.
What kind of love are you talking about?
Yeah.
And there's laws against that and things like that. But you see this story, and I was asking around, I'm like, what kind of story is this? And you're like, fish out of water, which sounds funny, which it sounds like a joke, but I think it truly is that. She is this woman who is unable to communicate.
Spoilers.
Yeah, I haven't seen this.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Then maybe I shouldn't talk about it too much. But you're right. The wet feeling of it reminded me so much of this documentary because you just go, imagine being in that world. Imagine her, like her happy place is the bathtub.
You correlated, 3 movies? You said, what was the one with the pig and the spider?
Charlotte's Web.
Thank you. And then...
Arrival
and Shape of Water.
Shape of Water.
It's been a long day. Shape of Water, and then
My Octopus Teacher.
My Octopus Teacher. So what is the common element that's so like appealing in those movies? What's the thing that you think reminds you of all those movies?
It's this feeling, and I'll just use the word magic, which that sounds kind of big and dumb, but let me explain. It's this feeling of it's possible. It's possible to make friends with an octopus. It's possible in a wild imagination that a spider might write a message to save her friend that's a pig. The reason I draw that line is because she has all those babies at the end and they're like, oh, it's Charlotte's babies. Both of the endings of those movies are very similar.
And octopus and spiders all have a lot of legs.
They do.
That's true.
And they have many, many babies and all that. And so I think what it is it's honing in on your hopes for what you wish could be. So for instance, Arrival, I wish that if aliens were here or landed here or whatever, it would be that way. It would be, yes, people are kind of scared, but it brings everyone together to go, how are we going to deal with this? And obviously there's going to be some people who want to fight them and kill them and some people who say no. And it's this idea of these things that are greater than us, that are out there, that pay attention to us. And so I look at this octopus as this creature that I don't understand, but I want to because she seems special. The octopus, she's a sea creature. And sometimes I say, dolphins and whales, they're like the humans of the sea because they have languages with each other. They have regions where if you took a whale from this part of the ocean and this part of the ocean, they couldn't communicate, but they can with their pods. And so you start to look at this swirl of kind of, the world is full of more than what meets the eye. And I think all of these movies kind of give you that. They give you this feeling of, are there aquatic men who could do this and understand egg? Like, are there, that's from Shape of Water, are there these kind of magical extra relationships and connections that you can have with things that you normally don't? Like, human beings are the only real conscious things that we can communicate with and have these intelligent conversations with.
It's probably the same reason that you want aliens to be a thing.
Yes.
It's that you want something else, and maybe all these movies do that. They kind of say there is something else that's sentient.
Yeah.
There's something else that if we like to think as humans that we're on top and that there's nothing else above us and whatever. But then all of a sudden in that movie you're like, oh, what if the octopus is smarter than we are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if it has something to teach us? My Octopus Teacher. That's the name. What if they have something to teach us?
Like, wow.
I'm getting it. It's all making sense. You've seen it 3 times.
Lesson learned. I think that's totally true. That can you see my eye twitching out?
No.
Oh, that's crazy. I can feel it right now. I think you're totally right. But what draws you to that?
I think it's like a very similar thing. It's like everybody wants there to be magic or aliens or something else because life seems dull or boring or whatever. And we live very like structured lives where nobody's going out and swimming in the ocean and meeting octopus. So you're just like, you're going about your day to your job and going home and eating dinner. And it's like, this is like so out of the norm that it seems like magic in a way.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what I think is cool
but
about
it's real.
It's real.
And
you can actually do that.
Yeah. That's what I think was so mind-blowing about this specific documentary is what you were saying earlier, which I didn't even know, is he's capturing stuff for the first time about these creatures, that it was only through his work and his devotion to her that this was even possible for us to see and learn.
Yeah.
It's just wild.
Yeah, like think about the way people make documentaries normally, like even about animals. They go out there like a couple of times a year or whatever, and they capture footage, or they put cameras in the trees.
Like Planet Earth.
Yeah, like that style of thing. But and they're always trying to stay far away from the animal. But this was like somebody like actually interacting with the animal, and like you never see that. So this is such like a different perspective on the creature, that it's not like just observing it from afar.
Right.
It's like actually observing it for what it is.
It is
like,
observing you.
Yeah.
I think it's like it shows you how much we take for granted, because like we have so many people, humans, scientists, whatever, thinking about all the animals in our past, like extinct animals, things that aren't like here anymore, and we're so curious about it because there's no way of knowing about them or learning about them because they're just not here. But then you watch this documentary and it's like, wow, like this kind of creature lives here now in the present, and it like almost brings you to this humble present, and like, oh, what if I look at the things and the people and the relationships I have around me, and how like much more dynamic and deep they could be, like learning how to befriend an octopus and build trust in a relationship, and like that connection that you can have with an octopus, and like probably so many more animals that we're not aware of yet.
It made us look at our cat in a new way, where we're kind of like, he's this creature that's living with us for a time. Like I will have seen him from the day he was born. I saw his pregnant little mom the day he was born, and probably till the day he dies. So like we will see him for his entire life, and we are the things that he's interacting with. And so it's like, he didn't really have a choice in that. So I want to make sure he feels like he's getting the most, just like this guy going into her world and not wanting to disrupt, because that's okay. So I kind of want to go back to that. This idea of seeing this animal that you have fallen in love with in a terrible spot. All of us are sitting here going like, well, obviously I'm not going to sit there with my camera and be like, I can't intervene. And he even struggled with it, like he said. Yeah. But imagine if it did disrupt.
He's basically a god in that environment.
Right.
And I would love it if God intervened every once in a while and made things better. And looked out for us.
Yeah.
If aliens,
because now he's just acting, hands off. He's like,
but a lot of people say
like
that is what
deist.
God is, that God is not, has no like skin in the game kind of a thing.
That's fine. But I'm just saying, if I get to choose, I'd like to have a God that's interacting with things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're watching me, God, and things are starting to befall me, there's a shark that comes around, like, intervene, wreck the ecosystem. Like, let's just...
Or would you rather God see this and then feel bad for you?
I don't want to... no.
And then show the whole world in a documentary and make
I don't want to... No. Not at all. Please. And if there's a documentary...
Truman Show.
I mean, I think that is it, though. I think that it shows us that we... I think that was the hardest part of the whole documentary. I think the hardest part of the whole thing was watching...
For sure.
That guy that you appreciate, you like him, you come to like the guy, but you're like, what the? I don't know anybody that's like, no, the right thing to do would just be to not intervene.
I feel like I've heard stories of that, though.
Yeah.
I've heard scientists say things like that, where they go, we cannot.
He's not a scientist.
No.
He's a story maker.
But he is a
I thought he was
documentary
a
maker.
marine biologist.
No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure because you remember in the beginning of the documentary, he talks
I
about...
watched it 3 times. I didn't know that.
He made documentaries and then got burned out, and this is what brought him
So we
back.
looked him up on, like, I think it was Kyle looked him up, or one of our friends looked him up, and it's like he made nature documentaries before. So he's already does this as a profession.
Okay.
And so that's where I was like, he has this mentality. Like I said, most nature documentaries, they look at it from afar.
Right.
They never interact with the creatures or whatever. So I think he already had that thought process of like, we're not supposed to interact, we're just supposed to let it be, those rules. But it's like, you could just interact.
I know.
You could just do it. Just don't even film it.
Shoo away the shark.
But here's the thing, though. So he obviously knew the shark was coming before the shark grabbed her. So like there was that opportunity, but it grabbed on, and she was going to lose that limb. Does he fight the shark away at that point and then now
Before.
Right, before. But
Anytime's fine. Anytime in the whole process that you want to stab that shark in the head, that's
but
fine.
just imagine if he's
Just eat
watching
the
this
shark for dinner.
imagine if he's watching this podcast and he's sitting there going, but I can't, like, I live by that code.
I would love it if you watched the podcast and heard me say you should have intervened. My opinion.
So sad. He's
One
going to
man's
live with
opinion.
that. He probably does. He's probably haunted by that.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's
He
the
was
other
so in
thing.
love with
He
that
was so
octopus.
I
distraught.
know.
Like once
Yeah.
he went back and he was like, I felt like it was my fault
Yes.
and like all
It
that.
was.
He definitely felt bad. And
It was his fault. I mean,
Brian, easy.
I mean, the reality is that octopus probably would have died by being eaten by a shark.
Right.
In any circumstance.
okay,
like
well, the
most.
reality is we're all going to die, but
Yeah.
we're not out there like
Yeah.
not protecting each other
It
if
could-
it comes to
Yeah.
that.
It
you
could
know?
have happened at
true.
night or one of the times that he wasn't there. I think it's just kind of crazy that it happened while he was there filming.
Yeah.
And he just kind of saw everything happening. But you can hear the pain in his voice when he's talking about it. Like he
Yeah.
has pause.
And the tears.
Yeah, and you know it's coming. You're just like, I know
Yeah.
something bad is going to happen here because he's
I
obviously.
think he did it just because it furthered his story, because it was the part of the story arc. I kind of do.
Yeah, because then
I
you got
kind of
to
do,
see-
honestly.
Yeah. Then you got to see like how it grew its arm back, and like
True.
that you wouldn't have seen that if that hadn't
That's true.
happened.
But did he know that? Or did he think
Oh,
she
I'm
was
sure.
going to die?
Oh, for sure. It's
they've
not like
been
he didn't.
researching
He
them.
wasn't going home and looking up octopus every night.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
studying it. Yeah.
every
true.
time he wasn't in the water?
I
Yeah.
honestly, when I watched it, I'm like, this dude made this for this story point. Like,
And that's where like he is
he's a story maker.
a story maker. And it was an amazing story.
Yes.
Like the way that he put that documentary together was
Yeah.
amazing. It was like
Really
the
good.
story arc was great, but
Yep.
it is just sad.
You guys want to know something super weird? So apparently on Twitter, it was trending for a while that this documentary was very sexual.
Oh, I know
And
you're
people
talking
were
about.
saying that they had a form of sex.
Yeah.
And that
Queer
certain
sex.
people were only watching the documentary to see for themselves. And there were posts going out saying, I watched it and I didn't see any. So it literally became a thing that people believed that there was a movie of a guy having sex with an octopus. And then they said it was a form because when she like jumps on his chest and he's like holding her, apparently that crossed a barrier for some people. And I'm like, how?
Like half
I think
the
it
time
was the
when I
moment
wake
too
up,
when it was like on his hand and he had like rocks on his hand, but it was like all over his hand, just
Right.
like
yeah,
having
which is
sex
so
with
cool.
his
But I mean,
hand.
no, that's like, I mean, I wake up many mornings and my cat is laying on my chest. So it's
Caleb.
like, this is just how animals interact. They
Yeah.
want to be close to you.
Right.
It's not like he was like forcing it into
No.
anything. And it's not even like it was sexual. It was just an interaction between two creatures.
Right. And that's what people do. They take something beautiful and they're like,
Try to ruin
this
it.
is bad.
Yeah.
And then people watch and they're like, I don't think it was that bad, but tell me where I should watch.
Yeah.
Can you timestamp it? It's like,
So dumb.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
Don't
dumb.
ruin amazing things.
I
like,
know. But that, I
who's-
mean, that's I think the downside to human beings is we are sometimes very stupid.
And cynical.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like a very cynical way to see that.
I don't know.
documentary.
I'm not cynical.
I think it's just jealous people who are jealous that they weren't the ones that made friends with an octopus. Like, how many
Yeah.
times have you guys seen somebody with there was a dog on Instagram called Maddie, and the Instagram is called This Wild Idea or something like that. And it's a photographer,
I think I know that one.
and it's his dog, and I think she's some kind of really cool looking like spotted dog, and he gets some of the most amazing pictures of this dog. She is a character. She'll have her eyes closed like, on command. She's in the middle of a pond or something of body water on this tiny little rock, and all her four little paws are all together, and she's just staring at the camera. The way that he gets her to do stuff, you're just like, they have a special bond. How many times have you been like, when is my cat going to finally do the thing?
Yeah.
Where it's like, we're bonded. Like,
Yeah.
no one else can do this, but it's just us. And usually dogs and like sometimes horses will do that with people, but it is very rare to get a wild animal that shows anything other than like, no, go away.
Yeah.
Like fear or anything like that.
I mean, the
I have
closest
not had
we
a
get,
moment like that.
Yeah. The closest I think that we get to that is like raccoons that are like brave enough to come out in the day. Like we're like,
Slightly
oh,
too
you're
friendly.
like, yeah, you're a little too friendly and you're getting close now.
I used to be obsessed with raccoons, and it may have been from Pocahontas because obviously she had
Yeah.
a friend
Yeah.
raccoon.
Yeah.
But we used to put cat food outside way back in the day when we had cats like that were outside. And obviously raccoons love cat food. And so we would sit by the window. We had a
Is
window.
that obvious? Is that a thing?
I didn't know that. I had
Think about it though. Cats, raccoons, they're
very
basically the
similar.
same.
Right,
And so
right,
we
my
would
bad.
They're like a rat and a cat mixed together.
they are with cute little like eye makeup.
Yeah.
So we would sit by the window that was like a floor length little window right by the front door, and we would just watch. We would sit so close. It was obviously glass between us, but it was like a zoo exhibit. We would just watch them like picking up little pieces and chewing with their mouth open like
Really?
crazy. And it was just so cute. And I was like, if I could just have one as a pet. I always said that. Hyenas. I used to be obsessed with hyenas.
Really?
Have you ever touched or been around a raccoon though?
I've
They
been
are
around, but
wiry,
Yeah.
little, nasty, hunchback animals. I had a
Really?
friend that had a pet raccoon, and it was
Oh, really?
it was
excuse
not
me,
Crazy.
you got to hang out
With the raccoon?
with a tame.
with a young raccoon,
Oh.
a
Ew.
cute little one, and it's so cute. And then you touch it, and you're around it, and you're like, "This is
It feels wild.
I don't like this."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it's
I mean,
not like
dogs
a
and
fluffy
cats.
cat.
Yeah, you want to pet them, and
Nope.
they like want you to pet them. Yeah,
not at all like that.
if it doesn't feel like
Made
it
of
should be
straw.
pet.
What about like hedgehogs? Why are they pokey?
I feel
Oh,
like they
yeah.
are. I
Why
feel
are,
like-
people
why
still
are
have
people so obsessed with having them as pets?
Dude, I was obsessed with having a hedgehog when I was younger.
what I
Did you have one, right?
So no, I never had
Oh.
one. I don't think I don't even
just
know if I
wanted one.
tried to have one. My neighbor had one.
You've tried.
I was
What does
afraid.
that mean? You go to the
I
pet
don't
store?
even think. No, I don't even think I talked to like my parents about
Yeah.
getting one or whatever.
Was it because of
Just a thought.
Sonic? Sonic
I
the
loved
Hedgehog?
Sonic the Hedgehog
Okay.
for sure, but there's something about the hedgehog when it rolls up into a ball,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like just a
I
ball
think
of
they're
spikes.
so cute, and
Yeah.
people like have
I've
now
never
like
held one.
videos of them like in a bathtub, and they like float on their back, and they put like little floaties on
Yeah,
them. I'm
they're
like,
cute.
It's so cute. They're so cute.
But they're not for petting like you would for a cat or a dog.
You can pet them
Yeah.
one direction.
Yeah,
Like a shark.
One direction.
Yeah, for real. Like from
Really?
head to tail, you can pet them that way. But if you go the other way, it'll stab you.
yeah.
It's
Not
like a
like-
shark.
It's not like a porcupine where it's gonna like hurt you.
Okay.
But
It's just pokey.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yep, that's one creature. Is it a rodent?
I think
It's a mammal.
So.
It's
got it.
Some,
is it a marsupial? Does it have a pouch?
What's a platypus? That's a mammal. No, that
No.
grows eggs. All these are wrong. We're not
yeah,
animal scientists.
we're not biologists.
Yeah, but the rule in the house is no rodents or
Mm-hmm.
snakes. But I want to say my brother caught a wild snake once and thought it like wanted it to be tame, and then it escaped in the house and we couldn't find it until
God.
I was playing hide and seek once, and I was like, "What is that smell?" And it was dead on the under the bed next to me, and I was like,
Oh, gosh.
I found the snake." I guess I just roamed around the house without food for too long.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
yeah, no rodents.
I had like my parents got us like hamsters when we were kids, and they were so cute. But then at one point, the big one that we had ended up being pregnant and had like a ton of babies. And then overnight, it got out of its cage somehow and escaped into the house. And then we spent like a couple days looking for it until we found that it like buried itself in the back of our couch. It like chewed a hole in the couch, crawled up in there, and like made a nest in like the fluff of the couch,
Oh,
and
my
was
God.
raising all of its babies in there. We're like, what the hell? So
Wow.
weird, but it was so cool to see. Like it was like carrying one baby at a time to get them
Whoa.
like once it was done. But I'm like,
That's
it's
Like
so
a mama
weird. Yeah.
cat.
Nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. Yeah, you shouldn't
like-
have rodents in your house.
I was gonna say if you had a rat that did that,
Oh,
Yeah.
so gross.
Like Templeton.
yeah,
from
that
Charlotte's
rat was
Web.
gross. That rat was always eating things.
I always remember the one line from Charlotte's Web, which is he keeps going to the fair to bring back stuff that she can write in
Yeah.
the web.
Yeah.
And he like unravels it and it says crunchy. And he's like, it says crunchy. And we always used to quote that as kids. Like it was our favorite thing ever. He was quite the character. He's
Yeah.
kind of like Gandhi's personality.
Yeah,
I feel like Templeton from Charlotte's Web is how we see Gandalf. How do you guys see your cats? What's the personality? Because I'm sure you have voices for them, right? Like you speak for them.
Yeah.
No, I don't speak for them.
what kind of crazy
What do you
person
mean?
does
Like,
that
like
for their
speak
cat?
to them or
No,
Right,
like
you want to hear the Gandhi
speaking-
voice?
No, let's not. Don't do it. That needs to stay.
I'll
that
do the
needs to-
Gandhi voice off the podcast so that people
Yeah.
don't like just tune out forever.
Okay.
But we have a voice that we speak. This is what's weird, and I wonder if this is a normal thing. Please tell me this is a normal thing, viewers at home. That we speak for him. So he's just standing there like looking at us, and then we say things in a specific voice that's only for him. And he's very dirty, he's very rude, and we say it to each other or just out loud, even about ourselves. Like I'll say what he's saying to me. but I don't really respond to him. It's just like he talks.
It's an internal reflection of what you really think about yourself. It's a way to
It's
psychologize.
like having a puppet.
Yeah, exactly.
for the puppet.
Exactly like that.
Yes.
Puppet will never talk to you. It's just you.
Exactly.
So do you have a voice?
I don't do that necessarily, but like I do when I see Luna like act a certain way, and I'm like, I can tell like why she decided to make that decision. Like when she's like hiding and about to pounce on the other cat or whatever, I was like, oh, she was thinking this, and I like say what I think that she was thinking.
Okay.
But I don't have like a voice for her. It's more like I'm just like watching.
We're the weird ones. That's not true though. I know a lot of people.
Definitely
that do
a lot of
voices.
people do that. Yeah.
But that
You
has
just can't do it in front of people.
Yeah,
That's where it gets like if you have somebody over and then you start talking for your cat.
But a popular thing on TikTok is people talking for their animals. They like record them doing some strange thing, and they just have
They do, like, a
voiceover like what
voiceover,
they
yeah.
think they're saying, and it's hilarious. Have you ever watched those?
I've never.
there's some
I don't
movies
think
like
I've
that.
ever watched one
Oh.
TikTok.
Really? Well, I have a treat for you. Well, no, you watched my TikTok that I made of your cat.
Yeah, but you sent that as a video.
I did, but
true,
it was still
yeah.
TikTok.
Okay, well, you tricked
they are
me.
like.
Congratulations.
They are just
Gotcha.
videos.
Yeah, but that's like a trend.
Yeah.
People
Interesting.
You remember
voice over
those, like,
their
movies?
thoughts of their pets.
That's like a genre of movies where it's like pets, but they do like a voiceover for the voices of the animals.
Yeah, pets.
You know. Yeah.
It's called Pets, right?
No, I'm just mean like
in general.
Yeah, like in general. There's that movie. I can't remember what it's
Buddy?
about. Like Airbuds and like
Airbuds.
things like that.
Oh,
where it's like
Homeward Bound.
Homeward Bound.
Bound.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking of. Yeah.
That was a
Okay.
great movie.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's the idea. Of,
That's
like,
what made me do it.
You give
That's what made-
voices to pets because that's just the thing you do.
What's weird though is when the voice of your pet is it's not just like, I'm going to say this thing. Like you kind of get, because when you speak to your
Yeah.
animals, it's like speaking to a child where you're like, hello. You know, like people do that and dogs get
like
really excited.
to your pet.
Right.
Yeah.
But to speak on behalf of the pet and then the voice, I don't know why, but we gave him such a just weird voice, and then also
It's embarrassing.
weird things. I don't think
Just
it is.
straight
I think
up
it's.
embarrassing.
I love it. It's so funny. But I think for him, I just wonder because his name is Gandalf, so why wouldn't his voice be like "Hello, Frodo"? It's not that. It's weird.
It's Vietnamese.
Vietnamese.
It's changed.
Yeah,
It became a little southern though, like
Southern
a little.
Vietnamese.
Yeah, it's very weird.
That's what happens when you're quarantined at home with
Excuse
a
me,
cat.
this happened way before quarantine. Okay, well, I think
We're
I
at
don't
an
know.
hour.
We're at an hour.
Is this
Okay,
an hour?
that should be a
Wow,
good
it felt
stopping
like
point.
5 minutes.
I
It
know.
always feels slow.